Can you walk me through some of the companies or organizations you work at so people know, when they can put a name to APICS?
Sure. When you take a look at the Fortune 200, you're looking at the majority of our clients that we work with. The majority of them are large multinational companies that have extended supply chains, so they're sourcing and delivering across the globe. They're also manufacturing or producing across the globe. Coordinating a network that is as disparate as these large organizations requires trained individuals, and this is where we step in to train the individuals on how to effect and how to manage a extended supply chain for very large multinational companies.
So this is something that executives are caring about more, I guess, and why is that?
When you take a look at the functions within an organization, there's really only two that have to know everything that goes on in the company. The first is finance. Obviously, nothing occurs in the organization without finance having a role in it. Similarly, supply chain. Nothing occurs in the organization without supply chain having a role. So when we see the individuals that are moving into leadership positions, often they were finance professionals, not supply chain professionals, because they weren't recognized for the leadership skills. They were more recognized for much more on the cost efficiencies and on the lean production and maintaining the operations of the organization. Now, much more strategic role. So we're seeing a significant shift in training of these individuals, not only on the competency of the subject matter expertise, but significant focus on leadership skills that are necessary.
When you're talking about moral leadership, how would you say the morals of companies, the supply chain, have changed over the years?
I think this is one of the areas they're probably in a leadership position because of understanding the consumer behaviors and what's driving supply chains today. If we take a look at 15 to 20 years ago, supply chains were within organizations and very few people even understood the concept of supply chains. Today, supply chain is ubiquitous. It's starting to bleed into the language on everybody understands, and they see the impact of it. Whether we have shortages in drugs, or whether we have child labor issues, or the factory collapses from slave labor, or unsafe working conditions, these impact the supply chains and they impact the brand of the organizations that work with these companies. So supply chain does have an effect on not only the value of the organization, but the commitment that the organization has to its customer.
I came across a really interesting report, a leadership report that you guys put out on the wage gap. And can you walk me through that? Why do we still have a wage gap in this?
In a couple of cases, it's predominantly gender-based. When we see the women in supply chain, they're coming in at the same rate as the men into the workforce, but yet over time what we're seeing is not only fewer individuals, specifically women, move into management, but the pay gap often is 15 to 20% for these individuals that have been in the industry for 5 and 10 years. Couple of reasons for that. Number one, individuals aren't given the opportunities that the males are often given opportunities for. There may be a perception problem that a woman won't take a difficult assignment or a travel assignment for family or other reasons. So a lot of it is work policies within the organization. Additionally, we need mentors. We need individuals that sponsor and can be used as role models for women in the industry. So with less than 27% of women in management, it begs the challenge for individuals not only to see, can I move up into leadership in an organization, and what does that look like for me?
As we're talking about this push to consumers of transparency within the companies themselves, do you feel that you sometimes have to make yourself transparent, sort of set moral grounds on what you stand for, what the organization stands for?
I think it's been a challenge for a lot of associations because we've tended to trail the industry and not keep up with them. And I think the challenge for us as an organization is to be in lockstep with the organizations right now and the changes and the challenges that they're seeing. So whether it's through research or through benchmarking or through additional workforce development, we need to be much closer to the clients as well as the companies. But I think there's also a role for the academic institutions as well. I think there's a partnership that has to be with the private organizations, the public, the schools, as well as the associations, to identify what the competencies are for these individuals and where do they get them. What's available in the school system? What's the foundational training that they need? What's the advanced management skills or the certifications they need? And then ongoing professional development with the companies is always a must.
So historically has not been the case, or?
I think what we've seen over time is that professional development and workforce development often coincides with the economic trends in the marketplace. The better the economy is, the more professional development and training that we provide. Yet when a recession hits in, what's among the first thing that gets cut is professional development and training for these individuals. If we're true to ourselves and what our #1 asset is, if it's the employee, Where do you invest your resources in the worst of times? In your number one asset.
If that's the first thing you slash, then you're sort of setting yourself up for a future, and it gets a little bit...
Exactly right. It's professional development and workforce development is not binary. You cannot turn the switch on and off. Not only the staff see that, but the employees and potential employees see what the impact and the commitment is of the employer to the employees. They're looking for that, and they want to be with employers that do have a stake and investment in the career of the individuals that they employ.
Do they find pushback maybe getting, a seat at the table just because historically they haven't been there?
What we're seeing is that, going back to the comment about not only gender equality, but the sort of recognition of what the supply chain professional brings to the organization, when we tend to take a look at companies that have chief supply chain officers, very small number of organizations that have recognized the role of that individual across the enterprise. I think as we start to see more responsibility and more capability for the individuals, we'll start to see more individuals in the C-suite from the supply chain.